every day to have you guys joining us as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, all that sorts of good stuff. And I am joined once again by my cohort, writer, director, editor, producer of Cody Banks, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today?
You know, I have to tell you, even if my morning is not going well, hearing you do that intro it gives me the pep I need to get through my day.
That's what I'm here for, man.
You're really good at that.
You're here to put a little pep in your step.
It's fantastic.
Still one of the stupidest things I've ever heard, your whole Bob Iger and John Carter of Mars theory. But,
I have something to add to that.
oh my God.
There are no
Why
toys.
did I open this thing?
Disney made a $250 million movie with no merchandising at all.
Yep,
It's more evidence.
They didn't do that for Wrinkle in Time or Nutcracker in the Four Realms either. Did he purposely try to tank those movies too?
No.
Anyway, we got a lot of stuff that we got to talk about here today. And of course, how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You guys decide what our main topics are, and you decide them by emailing me your topics and questions anytime to john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. Make sure you guys put the word topic in the subject line. And as always, keep those emails to 90 words or less. With that out of the way, let's get on to the first topic today. And our first question today comes to us from our friend Daniel Vasquez, who writes, during Christmas, I watched a trailer for Jordan Peele's upcoming movie Us, which looks awesome, and got my ticket for the movie for March 15th. But earlier today, this is yesterday, Universal announced that they moved the movie to a week later due to South by Southwest. Why would they decide to move the movie to a later date now, since they have tickets now on sale and people have already bought their tickets? Will I get a refund, or will I have to pay for another ticket to see it on March 22nd? All right, thanks a lot for the question, Daniel. And for those of you not quite sure what it is he's talking about here, what has happened is South by Southwest has announced that Us, movie to get out, is going to be debuting at South by Southwest. It's going to open up the film festival. As a result, they've decided to push back the release of the movie to March 22nd. Robert, they had already put the tickets for this thing on sale. It's a little bit late in the game, although we've had other movies, Avengers, for example,
right,
kind of last-minute one-week pushes. It's not like they moved it 6 weeks or anything. 1 week. Was this a good move on their part at this point?
Well, I think, anything that causes your consumers inconvenience isn't good. I mean, look, South by Southwest, no doubt, it's great to have your film, especially a film like Us. The anticipation for this, especially amongst horror fans or fans of great genre cinema. Look, that trailer, it's intense. The trailer made me, I was very excited. Like, I didn't want to see a sophomore slump from Jordan Peele. This film looks bananas. I mean, I love this idea that a family is taking on is it a cloned version of themselves? Is it some spectral version of themselves?
It's a shared cinematic universe with Star Trek with the mirror universe. Didn't you know that? Mr. Spock is going to show up with a goatee.
I did not, but whatever it is, it looks bananas to me. But I think, I don't know why they would put tickets on sale. I'm sure all of you will be able to get your tickets refunded, and it won't be that much of a problem. But, maybe it will be. If you bought them through Fandango or you bought them at your movie theater chain, they'll refund your money.
Here's the thing to me.
They?
First of all, I'm with you. I get it. South by Southwest is a big deal. And to be the debut film of South by Southwest, to open up the festival, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
You can get some free marketing buzz and some free marketing push. So you put it off by 1 week to take advantage of it. I get the rationale behind that. When I first read this email, I was like, wait a minute, they didn't already put the tickets for this movie on sale. But then I went to Fandango to check it out. And this is what I found. Check this out. When I was over on Fandango looking at the website, I saw this. This was, and look at the date. This was after they announced the move. They still had tickets on sale for March 15th. Even after they announced that they had pushed this thing, there were still people online buying these tickets for the 15th. So yes, I get the marketing rationale. I really do. But once you start selling tickets to your fan base, once you start getting your customers paying money, making their plans, making their arrangements, whatever, to buy your tickets, I'm sorry, your window's closed for moves of convenience. I get it. It was a move of convenience to take advantage of South by Southwest. But too bad, too late. You started selling tickets to the fans.
And how many hundreds, thousands, or maybe tens of thousands of tickets did they sell?
How many people have you inconvenienced? And you've gone, you know what this dude just did? They just went, fuck you. You're not important enough to us.
You bought your tickets already? And if you're worried about that stuff, why the hell did you put the tickets on sale this far in advance if you weren't 100% in concrete sure about when your release date was? If there was even a 1% chance that here's our enemy that we have to treat as an absolute certainty, if there was even a 1% chance that they thought we may move this date, then hold off putting the tickets on sale and getting people. Look, I understand a lot of stuff, but the moment you start screwing over fans, and I don't care if it's 100 fans that bought tickets already or 100,000 fans that bought tickets already, the moment you start screwing over fans, you start taking their money, you've made a commitment. You said, I've sold you a ticket for this movie on this date. Yeah. And look, if the director passed away, if one of the cast members passed away and they decide, you know what, we're going to push this off a little bit to give everybody some more breathing time, totally understandable at that point. We want to take advantage of the buzz we're going to get out of a film festival. That doesn't cut it to me.
No, I agree with you. I think it's not a great move. Everybody's anticipating. Get Out was a huge hit, a much bigger hit than anyone expected.
Wonderful film.
The one upside to this that I see is that the studio has great confidence in this movie because they want it to open South by Southwest.
Yes.
Which says to me that we're not in the midst of a sophomore slump from Jordan Peele. We're going to get something really special. And being the eternal optimist that I am, isn't that great? Isn't it great that I can't wait to see some great horror.
This, for anybody who might want to get on Twitter and like blame Jordan Peele, this has nothing to do with the director. This has nothing to do with Jordan Peele. He didn't make this decision whatsoever. And I fully expected, look, when you got starring in this movie, the future ex-Mrs. Campea, Lupita Nyong'o, she doesn't know that yet. But when you got Lupita Nyong'o in there and you got M'Baku in there, I mean, that was
times two.
Yes, I was times two of them.
Times
as a matter
two
of fact. I was so excited to see that these people were headlining this film. I mean, we know it's going to be good.
Right.
Like, you know it's going to be good. I just don't like the way the studio and the distribution company are treating the audience as if they don't matter.
Well, and also the company like Fandango now is they're the ones that are holding the bag. They're the ones that have to refund the money, and they're the ones that have to deal with the fallout. And yeah, it's not a good. And I'll tell you something. This selling tickets far out is now becoming a trend because they did it when they dropped the Captain Marvel teaser. They're now selling tickets for Captain Marvel 2 months out of the gate.
So they better not change the date.
Are they going to start? Are episode 9 tickets going on sale next week? I mean, do I have to like watch the skies and wonder when do Avengers Endgame tickets go on sale? Because I ain't missing out on those. Let me tell you.
But what really gets me though is that after the announcement, and this was like a good 12 hours after the announcement, the tickets were still on sale for March 15th. So people who aren't hearing this announcement, they're on there. Oh, I can get my tickets now for us for the next Jordan Peele movie. Buy. Like, get your shit together. If you change, like, if you're going to change your release date, coordinate with your vendors, coordinate with your business partners. Make sure this crap doesn't happen. To me, this is pure incompetence. This is pure incompetence on their part.
It had to have been a knee-jerk decision. They were offered the opportunity.
Which are never wise decisions.
They're never wise decisions, but unfortunately, that's the way many things seem to be going these days. There wasn't a lot of thought. I'm sure they're like, somebody made a phone call and said, would you like to be the opening night film at the South by Southwest Film Festival? And someone said, yes, great. Awesome. Let's do that. Done. Locked in. Without thinking that, oh, you mean tickets are already on sale?
I mean, people have already bought these tickets? You mean we haven't told anybody else what we're doing? Yeah, well, we'll have to find out. All right. Let's move on to the second topic of the day.
And the second topic of the day comes from Don Anderson II. So my question to you is, Mission Impossible Fallout was amazing. But with the way it ended, do you think there will be a seventh? As much as I love seeing Tom Cruise kill it in these movies, I don't know what story they can tell after Fallout. Me personally, I'd be excited to see another, but I'd be okay if Fallout was the last one.
You know, there's this thing, Robert.
I was going to say, what do you think, John?
There's this thing that goes around, and we see this in sports a lot of times, right? Okay, some great all-star athlete has an amazing, impeccable career. They're nearing the end of their career. They're still good. And people say, well, they need to retire now. They need to walk away now where they're on the top of their game. And my thought has always been, well, wait a minute, time out for a second. If so-and-so is still a great athlete and they love the game and they love playing the game and they're still good enough to be a professional in this league, why should we punish them for their success and say, you can't play anymore? With the Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible thing, they've had great success. We're on our 6th film. Kudos to them. And I've heard some people whispering, okay, time to cut it off. Time to stop it now. Why? These guys are on a roll. Now, I don't think Mission Impossible Fallout was quite as good as, say, Ghost Protocol, but these things just keep ramping up more and more. Tom Cruise is getting more and more daring. And as far as box office, let's take a look at how these movies have performed with the audience. Look, we're starting off with the first Mission Impossible made $475 million. Mission Impossible 2 made $546 million. Mission Impossible 3, lowest of all of them, probably the worst of the. Actually, no, I thought the second was the worst. But anyway,
it was a glorified episode of Alias.
Yeah, $98 million. But then they really started finding their groove. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol comes out $694 million. Then Mission Impossible Rogue Nation comes out $682 million. And now this one, the highest grossing of all time of this franchise, makes $790+ million. And remember, this is not like a Star Wars or an MCU thing where every movie is connected to the other one. There are some obviously narrative ties between some of these films, but for the most part, they're treated like episodic events of a television series. When that's the case, just move on to the next story. Right? I mean, I don't see why. And look, we already know Tom Cruise. We've heard, who is this? McQuarrie.
Right.
Christopher McQuarrie.
McHugh.
McQuarrie has already said that Tom Cruise has some insane ideas for number 7 that they're really excited about. So we know they're looking towards it. But my point of view is, look, you're on a roll. You're getting more and more successful. The audience is loving this franchise more and more every year. And you're still doing them well, and they're making money. Why stop? I don't see any reason to stop.
Look, I agree with you. And there's things happening in the world, such as Richard Branson is finally going to go to space. He's finally going to go take.
That's right.
He's privatizing space. People can go into space. I guarantee you, Tom Cruise is going to be. It's either going to be Tom Cruise or James Cameron are going to space. Who will get there first? Who will film the first narrative feature in orbit?
Well, remember,
and it's either going to be Mission Impossible and Tom Cruise, or it's going to be James Cameron and I don't know what.
Or Vin Diesel in Fast and the Furious in outer space. But don't forget, like, Tom Cruise has already gone suborbital for The Mummy, for that zero-G gravity thing in the plane, which when you watch the feature on that stunt, it's crazy. He did his Halo dive in Fallout.
Many times.
He's only like half a kilometer away at this point from being in outer space anyway.
I mean, I want to see that. I want to see Tom Cruise in space.
And he's going to have NASA teach him how to fly a space shuttle. So he actually pilots this himself.
He will pilot. I mean, he's learning how to pilot. He's flying jets for Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, the official reason they stated for delaying Top Gun Maverick is Tom Cruise decided he wanted to actually be behind the stick. Yeah, they're teaching him how to fly military-grade fighter jets.
Don't you want to live in a world where this kind of thing is going on? I do. With all the craziness that happens in the world, I just want to know that there's an actor like Tom Cruise who is flying fighter jets, who's going to go suborbital and then orbital. Perhaps he'll be the first man on Mars.
I wouldn't doubt at this point. All right, let's move on to the next topic today. And the next email today comes to us from Winderson Francois, who writes, "Hey, John, longtime fan, first-time email." Thanks so much, Winderson. My question is, with both Star Wars Episode 9 and Avengers Endgame coming out this year, which would be the biggest disappointment if both of them don't deliver? Star Wars Episode 9 or Avengers Endgame? Thank you, and keep bringing the filthy. Robert, it's almost inconceivable for us to think about, but let's say 2019 is a year that we get both Endgame and Star Wars Episode 9, and in that year, both of them suck. Which one of those things do you think causes the greatest sense of disappointment? A sucky Avengers Endgame or a sucky Star Wars Episode 9?
Well, look, we've all lived through the Phantom Menace. Well, maybe some of you weren't born yet, but those who did live through the Phantom Menace, I don't think there was a more shattering time at the motion picture shows than watching Phantom Menace. So Episode 9 can't disappoint as much as that film did. But I would say this. Because we have already been prepared for potential Star Wars disappointment by the prequel trilogy, I think if Episode 9 disappointed, we're used to it. But if Endgame disappoints, I know that I am going to go lock myself in a padded cell, and if I'm not crying giant tears of either sadness or joy at the end of Avengers Endgame, it's going to be a disappointment for me. But like I always say, all hail our Lord and Savior Kevin Feige for bringing the comic book joy to the masses, because he hasn't lost yet.
No, I mean, he's put out some not great ones, Iron Man 2.
But they're still
Thor's
good.
Dark World, depending on who you ask. But none of them are train wrecks.
No, they're not.
None of them are train wrecks. I'm going to go the other way, and here's why. I'm going to say the thing that will cause the bigger disappointment is if Star Wars Episode 9 sucks, and here's why. I have found, having parents who had to raise me, disappointment is an accumulative thing, and disappointment compounds. Because you know what? When you got a straight A student kid, which I was not, if you have a straight A student kid and they come home with a B minus one time, hey, come on, what happened there, right? When you have a kid who comes home with a C and then a D and another C minus and then an F, it's just like it just builds and builds. It's like, oh my God. I've had female friends where they start dating complete jackholes and you're like, what are you doing? And then they complain and cry about their relationship and then they get into another relationship with a jackhole. And it's like, and now I'm starting to lose faith in you and your discernment. With Star Wars, I'm not even going to go as far back as the prequels. Let's just go back to the last Star Wars movie. Why am I forgetting the name of it?
Jedi?
The Last Jedi. Now, where a hell of a lot of people
By the
like
way,
that
you
movie.
just started a firestorm on our comment
Look,
boards.
as a hell of a lot of people like The Last Jedi. I like The Last Jedi. There's a hell of a lot of people that don't. And even those that do, like myself, have some issues with that damn movie. But no matter whether you like or dislike the movie, there's no getting around it. It's a pretty divisive film.
Yes.
Right?
No
And
doubt.
it's not like, pardon me, it's not like it was the first film. It's coming on the heels of a really successful The Force Awakens and a really successful Rogue One. And then they come out with The Last Jedi and please some, don't please others, divisive pretty much. So there was already a sense of disappointment. My sense is if Endgame comes out and craps the bed, I think comic book movie fans and Marvel fans specifically can go, well, hey, we were due. We were due for one. I mean, we're disappointed. We wish it was better. But hey, we've had 8 amazing films in a row. Some would say 20. Maybe we were due. If Star Wars Episode 9, though, disappoints, you're not coming off a win. You're not coming from a position of strength. You're coming into that failure from a position of weakness. It's like, God, again? And I think it'll compound that disappointment. So I completely see where you're coming from. I think where you're saying is completely valid. But for me, failure and disappointment is an exponentially compounding phenomena, and I think it would be even greater for Star Wars Episode 9.
I would also just like to add, we are getting another Star Wars movie and Avengers Endgame, the culmination of now 11 years.
In the same year.
So this whole, as many people know, I'm a glass is half full kind of guy. I just think it's amazing and wondrous. We live in these amazing times, people. Star Wars and Avengers Endgame within 6 months of each other? These are heady times, my friends. Heady times.
Look, I know we talk about it all the time, but 2019 in general. I mean, look, we got an Avengers movie. We got a Star Wars movie. We got the live-action Lion King.
We got a new Quentin Tarantino movie.
Which sounds amazing, by the way, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, with an incredible cast, maybe the strongest cast he's ever worked with. This is going to be one hell of a year for movies, and I cannot wait. And if they all suck, the greatest disappointment will probably, if they all suck, the greatest disappointment is going to be The Lion King to me. I don't care. But you know what? I think it'll be the compounded effort of Star Wars. All right.
It's going to be a fine year, people.
It will. What's
year.
Next?
What is next? Well, Talmud Major says, I absolutely love all the new Star Trek movies. Really? I'm sorry.
I do too.
Into Darkness wasn't the best, but Beyond was spectacular. I was really excited when I heard that they were doing a 4th, but I just read that the whole thing has been scrapped. What happened, and do you think it can get back on track? Live filthy and prosper.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Talmud. And, here's the thing. We heard a while ago that some brakes had been put on Star Trek because Chris Hemsworth, who was going to come back as James Kirk's dad, and Chris Pine, 2 of the great Chris's in Hollywood right now, who was supposed to play James Kirk, they were having some contract disputes. Paramount wanted the actors to take a cut in salary from what they prearranged and agreed, which is understandable, and I'll get to that in a second. And equally understandably, the actor said, "No, man, we made a deal. I was going to do these movies. You would pay me this much, and I'm not going to do this movie unless you pay me that much." I understand where the studio's coming from. Understand where the talent was coming from on that. It's one of those situations, right? Then they hired this director to come on board. It was the first female director ever for a Star Trek film. But then this report came out yesterday in Deadline. And here's what this report said. Let's bring this up here. So the report was basically that Clarkson, I believe it's S.J. Clarkson is her name. Deadline is now reporting that Clarkson is now going to be the executive producer and pilot director for the upcoming prequel Game of Thrones series, which I believe is called The Long Night or something along those lines is what they're talking about calling it. And within that story, they said she had been brought on to be the first female director in the Star Trek franchise, but that project, says Deadline, has been shelved. It's done. So the director is gone. Pine, who's the star of the series, still ain't on board. Hemsworth, who's supposed to be the co-lead of this next movie, no longer on board. The thing gets scrapped. Now, in talking about understanding where the talent and the studios are coming from, let's put this into perspective, okay? Let's look at the Star Trek franchise in perspective. Here's the box office results for the last 7 movies. And you notice I've got them separated by a J.J. Abrams icon there. The last 7 movies, let's go back. 7 films ago, we had Star Trek Generations worldwide, not just domestically, not opening weekend. Worldwide made $118 million. Star Trek First Contact, which a lot of people love, made $146 million. Again, worldwide, not opening weekend, all time. Star Trek Insurrection made $112 million. Star Trek Nemesis, the final Star Trek film before J.J. Abrams came along, made $67 million worldwide. Now, we get into the J.J. Abrams era. Star Trek in 2009 made $385 million. Star Trek Into Darkness made $467 million. Star Trek Beyond, which I think is the best of those 3, made $343 million. 2 big things to take away from this, Robert, I think. Number 1, the franchise clearly got rejuvenated. I mean, we look at these numbers, the franchise got rejuvenated. How good or bad they are is up for discussion, but clearly there was a rejuvenation that happened. But the second thing is this. While 385 is super impressive when you compare it to the history of Star Trek franchise, while 467 is impressive for the franchise, while 343 is impressive for the franchise, it ain't the numbers Paramount was hoping they were going to get when putting together a big sci-fi, popular IP, epic kind of franchise. They were hoping for 500 as your baseline, 500, 600, and $700 million. As a result of that, Paramount had to go back to their talent and say, look, we thought the ceiling financially on these movies was like $700 million. Clearly the ceiling is around 4 to 5. To make money, we need to start cutting a little bit of corners. Can we reduce the salary of the actors? I totally get why they would ask that. I do. And I totally get why Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth would say no. But with this type of stalemate being in place, despite all these talks of a Quentin Tarantino maybe doing a Star Trek film at some point, with all this stuff, yeah, it is shelved. And I'll be honest with you, dude, I don't know that this Kelvin kind of reality of Star Trek that we're in right now, I don't know that we're going to see it get back. I don't think we're going to see this Chris Pine, Chris Hemsworth Star Trek film. I don't think it's going to happen at this point.
Well, there's something else to consider. The Star Trek films, the J.J. Abrams, the Kelvinverse movies, were hideously expensive to make. Star Trek
comparatively, especially, yeah.
Star Trek Into Darkness, including its marketing, I've heard it pushed $300 million total. It was a very expensive movie. That kind of return did not cover that film.
No, not at all.
None of these films were as profitable as they'd hoped. The idea, first of all, Star Trek has never traveled well internationally, ever.
Right.
I mean, it
yeah,
plays
you made
well,
that point yesterday.
Yeah, it
too,
plays well in Germany. It plays well in the UK. It's never played well internationally. And the idea that you would spend $200 million on a Star Trek movie was reckless and foolish to begin with, because that's not what Star Trek is. They tried to, the fundamental problem I see with the Star Trek franchise is they've tried to turn them into these action romps. J.J. Abrams famously has said many times, I was never a Star Trek fan. I mean, Star Trek to me was his wind-up to get the Star Wars gig, to direct Star Wars. And, you know, what they really should have done is look at Star Trek as an independent, low-budget indie science fiction thriller. And they should have made those movies for $75 million, $100 million, maybe $125 tops. And they could have had a really nice franchise. But they needed somebody who really knew what they were doing and really knew Star Trek.
See, the thing is, the problem I've always had with the Star Trek franchise going into the new era was the fact that I felt like there was a fundamental misunderstanding about the health of the Star Trek franchise prior to 2009. A lot of people forget that prior to 2009, Star Trek, and I mean this quite literally, was a dead franchise. I mean, like when your cells are now dying off, you are in a state of decay. You are in a state of dying. Star Trek fans were literally literally dying off. The fan base was literally dying off.
You're not wrong.
And they weren't doing anything at that time to bring in new fans to replenish, right? 2009 came along. They tried to do some things a little bit differently. They certainly spent more money than previously, and they got better results, but not the results they needed and not the results that they wanted. I feel like they were tinkering on something. And by the way, I loved Beyond. I really did. I thought Beyond was the best of the JJ franchise. But I don't know, at this point, Robert, understanding the situation with Pine and Hemsworth, understanding the overall cultural placement of Star Trek right now, understanding the fact that they just lost their director, do you see some potential here that this Star Trek film that they had planned can get back on track at some point?
No, but I don't. I mean, I think that the problem is, the real problem that I had is that they went back. Star Trek has always moved forward. Even Enterprise was a sequel series that showed us things we hadn't seen before. What did they decide to do to reinvigorate the Star Trek franchise? Is retell the story of Kirk and Spock. Well, the one thing about doing that is we watched Kirk and Spock as young men in the series move into the movie series and grow older into middle age. The characters of Kirk and Spock, in all of pop culture history, it's very interesting, they were allowed to grow old and die within the context of the movies.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to, Star Trek had been moving forward for 40 years. You had the original series, the movies, the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and we're moving into these a new interesting era. And Star Trek has always reflected the era that it's from. Well, why go back and take your characters that were established in the 60s and try and reinvent them for the modern age? Why not create new characters that belong to the age that they're in? You know, an audience wasn't given new Star Trek, wasn't given new people.
But didn't they try that with Enterprise?
Well,
and
look,
didn't they try that with?
Well, they look. I think that to a certain extent, look, Enterprise wasn't as successful as they wanted it to be. But
by the way, underrated. I think an underrated franchise. I actually quite like the show,
especially when you get to season 4. But I really think that we need a Star Trek that reflects today's age. And here they try and go and do Star Trek Discovery. What do? They set it in the era, the pre-Kirk Spock era. They're bringing Spock back as a new character, as another character on Discovery now. Why don't we go forward in the Star Trek universe? That's what Star Trek is always best at. Let's look at the future, and all it's been doing is going backwards.
By the way, Star Trek Discovery is awesome. I love that
not,
show. You and I are going to have
awesome.
a very serious debate about this sometime.
But I hope season 2 is. Really hoping. Emo Spock with a beard.
When does it come back?
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to our final email of the day. And our final email today comes to us from, oh my gosh, all the way from Hogwarts. Luna Lovegood writes in, and she writes, I know it was unlikely for a long time, but I was wondering if you read the stories that the proposed Men in Black and 21 Jump Street crossover movie, aka MIB 23, is now officially a no-go. Do you think this one was ever a real possibility, and do you think it had any potential? Robert, we all remember back just a couple years ago when those Sony emails leaked that they were actually planning a 21 Jump Street Men in Black crossover, having Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum joining Men in Black, all that kind of stuff. And now apparently nothing has ever happened. Did you ever think that one had any real legs to it, and was it something you were looking forward to?
Well, okay, here's the thing. I love Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill together in those 21 Jump Street movies are pretty great.
Fantastic chemistry.
They have great chemistry, and I really love those actors, especially in comedic roles.
Yeah.
And I think the potential, the crossover of beat cops or undercover cops discovering that the Men in Black exist because we don't know. The real world doesn't know that there are aliens on Earth. That idea actually appealed to me. I like those kinds of inter-franchise crossovers. Plus, whoever they got to play the Men in Black or bringing back the old cast, it could have been, or the cast that we're getting for Men in Black
with
International.
Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson.
Can you imagine all 4 of them together? It could have been pretty damn great. But then you have the rights issues, the producing issues.
So complicated.
The amount of money that it would have cost to put those 2 franchises together, because both of those are previously existing. Men in Black was a comic book. 21 Jump Street was a television franchise. There would be so many producers that it would have been incredibly prohibitive to have made that from a production standpoint. Your producer fees would have been well, out of this world. So I don't think it was ever a real possibility that was on the table. It was probably somebody came up with in a meeting. You know, like that old. Have you seen the Key and Peele sketch when they talk about Gremlins 2?
Yes.
It would be like that. It was that kind of a meeting. Somebody said, "What if we put these two franchises together?" And in the meeting, everyone probably got really excited, or Jordan Peele came in with that character and was spinning it around, going, "Yes, we can do this." But really, you can't. Once you start running the numbers, you can't do that.
Yeah, Jonah Hill was very excited about it because one of those emails that got leaked was one of his, and he was like, "This is so dope. It's going to be this and all this kind of excitement stuff." Look, I'm going to admit, the 21 Jump Street franchise was one of those films coming out that when they announced it and they were doing it, I was like, this is one of the most stupid ideas I have ever heard. And you know, Channing Tatum hadn't really turned that corner yet for me.
Right.
I'm actually a Channing Tatum fan now. But a number of years ago, I honestly thought he was the worst actor in Hollywood consistently getting work.
You weren't
right?
a Magic Mike disciple?
Oh, gosh. But did Magic Mike come after 21 Jump Street? I can't remember. But at any rate, Magic Mike-ness aside, I thought this was a horrible idea, and I have loved the 21 Jump Street franchise. You're so right. The chemistry between these two guys was way more than I was expecting.
Yeah.
By the way, I often talk about the funniest single moments in history. I still say the one moment in cinematic history that made me laugh the hardest, it does no justice when I repeat it, but is Mel Brooks' Spaceballs. When Dark Helmet says, "Now Lone Star, you will see that evil will always triumph because good is dumb." I've never laughed harder. But in the top five, is that moment where Channing Tatum is sitting there and pieces together that Jonah Hill slept with Ice Cube's daughter, and Lord Miller even put in that alarm clock. Bing! It goes off in his head. I don't even know what happened in the next 3 minutes in that movie because I was just laughing myself sick at that. So funny. And I'll tell you what, we talked about this yesterday. Sometimes you hear ideas and your first knee-jerk reaction is, "Oh, that's one thing," and then you stop for a second. When I first heard about this potential crossover, I was like, "Oh my God, how desperate is that?" And then I stopped. And I started thinking about it. And I started going, you know what? That could actually be okay. That could work. But you're right. Absolutely right. The contrived web of rights and all those issues and all the legal hurdles they would have to be able to go, the deals that they would have to orchestrate and put together ultimately became too much.
Yeah.
And they finally pulled the plug on. The Men in Black producer actually said that. He said, "Look, it just became too monumental of a task to try to put it together. We had to shelve it," which is too bad. But I'm going to tell you right now, it might have been awful. It might have been terrible. But I was down for checking it out. It out.
Why not? You know, I mean, look, they're making Bad Boys for Life now. You know, that's amazingly gone into production. But I would love to see a 23 Jump Street, a third one. Why not?
Me too.
We're getting Men in Black International, which actually looks like a lot of fun.
That trailer was way better than I thought
what
it
a
was
great
gonna be.
cast.
I'm just curious, Ray, would you have been down for a Men in Black? 20? Yeah, Ray's saying yep. So Ray's on board with it as he's folding purple ribbon. You have no idea why he's folding purple ribbon. I'll tell you about it some other time. All right, guys, that'll do it for all of the questions that you guys have sent in. But as we like to do around here, we're going to save a little bit of time and take some of your live questions. A bunch of you guys have been firing in live questions as we've been going. So let's jump over and see what you guys are talking about. Michael Ashton is writing, "Love the new title for the Mr. Rogers movie, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood." Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't hear that.
Oh, yeah.
The last I heard it was just "You Are My Friend," which, granted, wasn't a great title.
No.
"You Are My Friend" was not a great title.
No, for many reasons.
Tom Hanks playing Mr. Rogers.
Great.
Are you
cast.
kidding me? That's
I am
so
not
good.
kidding. It's happening. I can't wait to see that. What a great title.
By the way, did you see Mr. Rogers, the documentary this year?
No, I have not seen that.
It floored me.
Yeah, I can't wait.
I walked out shaken. There are some movies that are so good that you feel like it changes the way you see the world, but then there are some movies that are in the elite that make you change. It changes you because you watch it. Mr. Rogers, that documentary is just one of those ones for me.
An incredible. And I grew up watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. When I was a kid, I loved, it was the anticipation of how long is he going to take to get from his little living room with his slippers to the land of make-believe.
You know what?
I was anticipating.
I got to admit something. I was in my 20s when I realized that he did all the voices of all the characters. I didn't even realize that till I was like in my 20s. Who knew? Okay, Danny Ramuni writes, least favorite thing a reviewer / critic can say is, I wanted / tried to love this movie. Also got 4K Blu-ray of Black Klansman for $11.99. So happy. That's a good deal. Damn, I love Black Klansman. Number 2 best movie of the year, in my opinion.
Where do you get that?
I don't think. Yeah, I'd like to know where he got
Amazon?
that. You know what? I don't mind it when a critic says I wanted to love this movie. That just tells me that a critic went in with high hopes, high anticipation. I have no problem when a critic is kind of open and transparent like that. I appreciate it actually myself.
I do too. And I go into, as everyone knows, movies are so hard to make. I go into every movie wanting to love it.
Yeah.
I really
by
do.
the way, how do you like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse? Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, I forgot. You still didn't see it. Okay, Ben writes, if we take Kevin Feige at his word and Endgame trailers don't show more than the first 15 minutes of the film, that should make Far From Home marketing very interesting, seeing that Sony is distributing that movie. Well, I mean, I don't know that it's going to affect the one thing it kind of tells us, though, is it tells us you ain't going to see Black Panther and Endgame trailers. You're not going to see Spider-Man and Endgame trailers, unless it's flashbacking to them dusting.
Right.
So if he stays true to that, then we're probably not going to see a lot of these characters. But honestly, I don't see how that would have any impact at all on what Sony does with their marketing. Look, we all know, it's no secret, it's no spoiler. Spider-Man comes back.
No.
So Sony is just going to treat their trailer like any other movie. They're just going to market their trailer, have no references to Endgame, and they're not going to worry about, does this give something away? Everybody knows.
Well, and also, look, Spider-Man comes out, 2.5 months after
Endgame?
Endgame?
Just a sneeze after Endgame.
But still, I mean, that's still 2.5 months. I mean...
But it does mean Spider-Man Far From Home trailers are going to be out before Endgame hits theaters. And so that's interesting.
Yeah,
interesting.
We'll see. I mean, I think they're going to have a coordinated strike when it comes to these two movies because obviously Kevin Feige has famously said Spider-Man Far From Home is where Phase 4
kind of unofficially begins.
So it's a big deal. It's look, after whatever happens in Avengers Endgame, and as I've said before, I'm deliriously excited to see what happens. Far From Home is going to be a palate cleanser, if you will. It's going to be something that resets after the shenanigans of both Infinity War and Endgame. I can't imagine a bigger movie.
Oh, but there's going to be a lot of shenanigans in Endgame.
There's going to be some shenanigans happening, and I think that when we get to Spider-Man Far From Home, we're gonna want. It's going to be, it's after the holidays. It's going to be a new year kind of a thing. Christmas is over. Your relatives have gone home, and now we're going to settle into some bright, shiny potential and have fun with Spider-Man.
All right, next up, Dr. Panders writes, my movie buddy and one of my best friends went back to school in another state. I haven't been going to the movies that often because he isn't here and I get a little depressed. Any tips on getting out of this movie slump? Going to the movies to me is one of the great social exercises, actually, because even for those of you who haven't heard, Dr. Campea's relationship advice, let me hit you up with it right now. So sit down, take notes. Here we go.
Oh, wait, let me get my pen.
Here is, all right. Look, the dinner and a movie thing. You and I have talked about this before.
Yes, I like this.
Let me just highlight it here really quickly. All right. Dinner movie. Some people in recent years have poo-pooed on the idea of dinner and a movie as a first date sort of thing because, you sit in a movie and you're just quiet and then you go home, right? I'm like, no, fool. Listen up, kid. You're doing it the wrong freaking way. You don't do dinner and movie. You do a movie then dinner or movie then drinks because here's why. Specifically for first dates. You go into a movie now, right? You go into that first. You now have, with this person, a shared experience together. You laughed together, you cried together, you jumped, you startled. Now when you come out of that movie, you've got a common point of a shared experience together that you can kick off your discussions and conversing with throughout the evening, and then that can evolve into other things. I have had people, Robert, don't take my word for it, I've had people, lots of you guys write to me saying, John, we've employed this technique. Great success. You should make sure you do that. But listen, Dr. Panders, at the same time, I get it. I've had buddies, when I was back home in Canada, I had buddies that I went to the movies with all the time. Moving to the United States was a bit of an adjustment for me because I just love seeing these movies with my friends, But you get past it. You do. I'm one of these losers. I don't mind going to a movie by myself. I'm totally happy if everybody's out for the evening, I'll walk down to the AMC Burbank 16, check out a movie, kick back, relax, watch a movie. I'm totally good with that. I say go to some movies by yourself for a little bit and just let the movies take over.
Can I add an addendum to your relationship
Please
advice?
do.
If you're going to do that, if you're going to take John's advice, and I think it's wise, sage-like advice, you have to pick the right movie. If you're going to take a girl to a movie, to dinner and then a movie, or to first see a movie and then dinner, I made the mistake of taking a date once to a movie called The Boys Next Door.
And Jim Cotta.
Which is
by the way. You also took a date to Jim
Cotta. Oh, but I already
Cotta.
knew that girl. She was all cool with that. But The Boys Next Door was basically about these two guys that come out to L.A. and decide to become serial killers. It was
awesome.
It was directed by Penelope Spheris. And I went to see that movie first, and then we went to dinner, and it was the longest, most awkward dinner of my entire life. So don't take a girl to a serial killer movie on the first date.
You know what I made the mistake of once? And I was young, so it was like one of my first dates. I took a girl to go see Crash, the one with James Spader.
Well, that could work out
I
well.
thought for those of you who've seen Crash, I thought Crash with James Spader was like, about car wrecks and blah, blah, blah. I had no idea it was kink porn about people who get turned on by crashing cars. And that was one of the most awkward experiences ever.
But
Don't make that
fantastic David Cronenberg movie based on J.G. Ballard's awesome novel. So I recommend all of you watch it.
Which one?
Crash.
Oh, The Crash. Yes. Good movie. Just, it scarred me.
Great Howard Shore score.
Really bad. There you go, Dr. Panders. Let me know how that goes for you, man. Orange Hand writes, given the scope of the Dune novel, do you think the upcoming movie will cover the whole book, or will the story be told across multiple films? Here's the thing. A lot of people forget this. The average novel is like 400 pages. The average screenplay is about 110 for a movie, right? Whenever you're adapting a novel into a movie, there has to be heavy adaptation. By the way, there's not just one Dune novel. It's not like there's just one Dune story, right? They will adapt it. They will adapt it to tell the story in one movie, I believe. It's too risky, especially coming off of Denis Villeneuve's previous film, Blade Runner 2049, which was a financial disaster. You're not going to go out there and make too big investment. They're going to make the first movie, see how that does, and I think they can adapt probably a 2-hour, 20-minute movie. It's going to be on the longer end, I'm guessing. What do you think, Robert? How are they going to do it?
I think you're probably right. But it's going to have to be long. I mean, one of the problems with Lynch's Dune is it's so much of it is compressed. Dune, for any of you who have not read the book, it's one of the great science fiction novels ever. It's got some of the best world building in it. It's the Game of Thrones of sci-fi. It truly is. And when I read that book, I think I was in junior high school. I was blown away by the book. I read it before I'd seen the movie, and it is a monumental achievement of science fiction and imagination. And I can't wait. Denis Villeneuve is the best director working today for this material. I can't wait. But I think it's going to be on the long side, probably one movie.
All right, Ben Rayner writes, "Hey, John and Rob. Rob, I saw your tweet about Manifest. I can't agree with you more. I hate that show, but I keep watching and I don't know why. You know, I've only seen the pilot. I only saw the pilot for Manifest. And I was actually quite intrigued with the pilot. I just never had time to get around and watch any of the rest of the series. Not so good?
Okay, I've religiously watched Manifest. It's terrible. I hate this show. It makes literally no sense at all. Somebody came up with a premise and managed to sell the premise. That said, it keeps going. It keeps going. It doesn't even go in very interesting. They give you like one little nugget of something every episode that's interesting, and the rest is this soap opera. But I watch every time it's on. It just came back. It was gone since November. It came back this week. I was right there, man. I watched that new episode, and I hated it. But you know what? I'm going to keep watching. I just want to see where they go. I am sucked into Manifest, and man, I keep watching.
You know, it sounds like me with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I hate that show, but I keep watching it. I don't know why I keep watching it. All right. Unbeatable writes, Audible.com should hire James Spader to read books. James Spader is one of the great him, Jeremy Irons, James Earl Jones, some of the great voices in the business right now. But just a little insights as somebody who just recently published a novel is it's not Audible who makes the audiobooks.
Right.
It's the authors and the publishing houses themselves that make the audiobooks and then just submit them to Audible. That's why we don't have a audio version of The Pride yet, because I can't produce an audio version of it. But if I can get James Spader to come in and do it, that'll be done. Give Luigi a ring writes, "Hey, John, I will be so pissed if Endgame disappoints or they have a real cop-out solution to the dusting. Star Wars lost me on the journey. Seeing Into the Spider-Verse tonight, can't wait. I know, you got Robert here who's really excited about seeing it too. I will also, the one thing that could really disappoint me with Endgame is if they do a real cop-out on the dusting, which, look, let's face it, it is going to be a cop-out. The dusting happened, the big traumatic event at the end of Infinity War, and I loved it. I loved it. But anything that you have after that that undoes it and brings everybody back, by definition, is a cop-out. It's going to be a cop-out. The question will be, will they make it a real entertaining, engaging cop-out, or will it be a lame cop-out? I'm predicting a fun, engaging, entertaining cop-out.
Look, I don't think it's going to be a cop-out. I mean, if time travel's involved, what's going to happen is, whatever happens, the world will be different at the end of Avengers Endgame than it was. It will not be the same world that the dusting occurred. History will have been changed. Our characters will be altered in some fascinating fashion, I'm sure. And I think it's going to be a rousing, entertaining success. And we're all going to be left pondering something at the end of the film, but it's going to be great.
All right.
It's going to be great, people.
Our friend Kevin Rubio, director of the greatest Star Wars fan film of all time,
Yes.
Troops, writes in, regarding the tinfoil hat theory, if Iger didn't want to quash John Carter of Mars, why didn't the most synergetic company in history produce even one toy, t-shirt, or game in advance of their big tentpole picture? Well, as I mentioned to Robert before, just as we were starting the show, they put a lot of stuff into A Wrinkle in Time. Not one toy, t-shirt, game. They put a lot of money into the Nutcracker in the Four Realms. Not one toy. And that thing's filled with toys. Not one toy, t-shirt, or anything. And they did not purposely tank those movies.
But John Carter was supposed to be an ongoing, the Edgar Rice Burroughs Barsoom novels. They don't even have a stuffed
so
Moolah.
was Aragon. Aragon was supposed to be an ongoing thing, too. You do the first one. If it succeeds, you do the next. Lots of films were supposed to be franchises and don't work out.
$250 million.
And it failed. So what?
I stand by my theory.
You stand by that theory, my friend. All right, listen. Samuel Phillip writes, Unbreakable is one of my favorite movies. The more I watch it, the better it gets. It is really good. You know, I remember the first time I watched Unbreakable, I was like, I'm not sure how I felt. I liked it, but I'm not sure. Then I watched it again. I'm like, no, I really like this movie. It is one of those films.
Well, I can't wait. That's why I can't wait to see Glass. I mean, I can't believe we're even getting Glass, another movie that we're getting in 2019 that, kids, we live in heady times.
1 week away.
Well,
One week away. Hey, guys, here's today's question of the day. Will Robert Meyer Burnett see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse before or after Glass? Register your votes now. Murray Reich writes, saw Escape Room, and it was actually pretty good. Very intense scenes, many poor dialogue. A lot of poor dialogue here and there. The ending could have been better, though. You know, I was in the middle of my Christmas vacation. I was traveling back and forth to Canada. I did not see Escape Room. Did you have a chance?
I have not, but my good friend Adam Robitel directed it, and I love that he's killing it out there. So, and it's done really well. I can't wait to see it.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that, Murray. Alpha Udrago writes, imagine Ralph Fiennes and Denzel Washington as the new Professor X and Magneto. Oh, are you kidding me? With a civil rights angle in the MCU. I know you don't like those questions, but come on. I mean, no, listen, seriously. I mean, look, don't ask me, John, which actor should play X role? I don't care. I'll say whoever's a talented actor. But if you were to announce to me tomorrow that Ralph Fiennes, who I think is the best actor on the planet not to have an Oscar on his mantle right now, and Denzel Washington were the new Magneto and Professor Charles Xavier, changing the Holocaust angle because it's too late now, and you instead change that to a civil rights movement angle, on board. I am on board. Two of the greatest actors working in the world today, with one of the greatest background story relationships in the history of comics. I'd totally be on board for that.
Oh, I look, Denzel and Ralph Fiennes. If you haven't seen Ralph Fiennes and Catherine Bigelow's Strange Days, or you haven't seen him as a Count Amashi in one of my favorite movies of all time, The English Patient, you haven't lived.
And a lot of people are going, who's Ralph Fiennes? Voldemort, okay?
Voldemort.
There you go.
But also Denzel, he can also do no wrong.
Oh, Denzel's so good. Even when he's in a horrible movie. You know, what was that? What was that film he was in about 5 or 6 years ago where he was the airline pilot and he flipped the plane upside?
Oh, yeah, Flight.
Was it just called Flight? That movie sucked. People like that movie. I don't know why. That movie sucked, but Denzel was amazing in it.
I kind of liked it. Robert Zemeckis directed
I
that.
know. Robert Zemeckis has directed some crap. Come
yeah,
on. He's directed some great things, too. Kara Black writes, Robert, what are your thoughts on Spider-Woman, a.k.a. Jessica Drew, and should she join the MCU after Avengers Endgame?
I've always liked that character. I hate to admit it, but there are certain comic book characters that I find myself attracted to, and Jessica Drew... Jessica Drew was always one of those characters. I love that costume too. So absolutely, she should join the MCU. And I think you'll probably see her. But isn't she part of? Sony would own her.
But Sony, in the original agreement, there were some characters that were going to.
Right.
Because Sony can't use a live action Spider anything.
Right.
So under the terms of the agreement. So maybe the MCU is somewhere she could pop up.
I like
Murray
Jessica
Reich
Drew.
writes. Replicas was pretty good, very original. Takes a while to get somewhere. Some good scenes, not good. Keanu was the highlight of it all. I still recommend. That is one I took a liberty pass on. I took a pass on Replicas.
I
got invited to a screening of it, and I just didn't bother.
I've been looking at these trailers. I like Keanu Reeves, and the film has an intriguing premise. I mean, for science fiction and fantasy films, you got to stimulate my imagination with your premise first, and it has an intriguing premise. And this is the first person I've heard. I haven't read a review. Murray, you're the first person to say anything about this movie. And because of what you said, I'm going to watch this movie now.
You know what intrigues me most about Murray's comment here is that it looks very paint by numbers to me, but he's writing it's actually a really original take.
Right.
That is the most interesting thing I've heard about this film so far. So I appreciate you sharing your thought on that, Murray.
Yeah.
Tyler Yeats writes, a theater near me is re-showing the Harry Potter movies. Makes me happy. I get to experience that again in theaters. Also loved Aquaman. Hey, look, it's always great when you get to go and revisit some of your favorite movies, way movies were meant to be seen on a big screen. That is the best way always, bar none, to watch a movie. And when those movies come in, you get a chance to go see it like that, you take advantage of that, Tyler. Jay Bling writes, glass embargo drops today. Yeah, we should be seeing... Actually, there was press screenings for it. Again, I passed on it. But there were press screenings for it. And there should be the embargo. Actually, I don't think it's a social media embargo. I think the review embargo drops later today. So we're going to see.
Reassuring.
It shows a lot of confidence dropping that review embargo for a week before the movie comes out. That means the studio's not afraid for those reviews to come out. That's encouraging. That's a good encouraging sign. Really Tired 64 writes, since Captain Marvel is set in the 1990s, will they have to CGI age Brie Larson for Endgame? I don't think so. I think something about her not being around is going to have something about her not aging.
Well, she's Kree.
Sort of.
She's Kree.
She's human.
She's human, but she ages slower. She's got Kree blood in her.
KW Garrett writes, regarding Rob's John Carter theory, I knew this was going to come up a few times today. I Googled for anyone else with this theory and came up empty. When you have out-crazied the internet, that deserves some praise. Congratulations, Robert. You out-crazied the internet.
What can I say? I'm damn proud of that. When I go full-on conspiracy theory, my conspiracy theories are compelling and true.
That just means you are truly an original thinker. I mean, seriously, when guys like KW can search the internet for somebody else who said that, and you're the only one with it, that proves you are an original thinker. I think that's a badge of honor. John Waldkin writes, there's only one choice left for Oscar host, Ricky Gervais. No, Ricky Gervais would be, and I love Ricky Gervais. The Golden Globes wouldn't have him back.
No.
I mean, that is no. I don't think Ricky Gervais is a good choice to host the Oscars. I think he's a brilliant comedian. I love watching all this. I love his podcasts. But he is not a host for that. I still think there's a 5% chance Kevin Hart comes back and does it.
You know who should host the Oscars?
Me.
Barack Obama.
Oh, my God.
I'm
that
not
would be
kidding.
Awesome. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be awesome.
He loves movies. He dropped his top 10 list. I mean, who wouldn't tune into the Oscars watching Obama come out to host?
Anybody who doesn't vote Democrat.
I think
it would be kind of divisive.
People
it would be divisive.
Tune in. Hey, look, this isn't politics. This is movies.
I know, but I'll tell you what. While I love the idea of it, if I was in charge of the Oscars and I was actually presented with the option of having Barack Obama to host the Oscars, first I would geek out a little bit, but then I would put on my thinking cap and go, probably not the best thing for the Oscars overall. Not when we're trying to steady the waters right now. It's probably not the best thing.
What if you had Barack and Michelle?
Still no.
I don't know. I think it'd be great.
I'll tell you what, though. You have Barack and George W. Bush hosted together. That's must-watch television. That becomes must-watch TV.
And who cares about the Oscars? I just want to watch them riff.
I could watch 2 hours of that, man. That would be amazing. All right, let's see. Hector Riaz writes, seeing Schindler's List for the first time, any advice? Yeah, go to the bathroom first because you ain't going to be able to get out of your chair. Have some tissue nearby. It is one of the movies that I've talked about that, like Detroit, that came out a couple of years ago. It is one of these movies that I find ridiculously phenomenal, and I can't ever watch it again. It just destroys me in the way they want to try to destroy you as an audience member. But it's so brilliant, but I can't watch it again. So I kind of envy you that you get to watch it for the first time.
And it's peak Spielberg.
Peak Spielberg.
I mean, it's peak Spielberg. So.
Ooh, okay. We just got time for a couple more here, guys. Devontae Brown writes, have you seen any of the Surviving R. Kelly miniseries yet, John? Thoughts? Hope you do. Very important to audiences outside of my black community to watch this. You know what? I have not, for a couple of reasons. Number one, you guys know if you've watched me for any period of time, I don't care all that much about the lives of musicians. I just don't. Not that I hope musicians die. I mean, I don't care much about the story of the lives of musicians. Don't get me wrong. There's like Walk the Line.
But this isn't that.
No, I know. And it's just, I know it's going to be rotten. It might be high quality, but I know it's going to make me feel rotten and dirty just to watch it. And so I don't want to watch it because I've just heard so many people talk about how disgusting it is. And that actually makes me not want to see it. Good marketing because that'll make a lot of people want to see it. But for me, so I haven't, Devontae. I really haven't. I'd be curious. If you saw it, let me know what you think of it. But I think it would be very difficult for me to watch.
Yeah, I didn't know that R. Kelly married Aaliyah when she was 15.
Ooh. I didn't know that till you just said it. Dim-Sum05 writes, what's your favorite thing to eat at the movies? Doesn't matter. I never eat it when I'm at home. I never eat it anywhere else. But it is a Pavlovian response. When I walk into that movie theater, I hear the bell, my mouth waters. I got to have popcorn drenched in butter. Because we all know that popcorn is nothing but a butter delivery device. That's what popcorn is. And, I forgot to make my video showing you guys my straw technique. Have I shown you my straw technique?
No, you told me about it.
So my straw technique is this. You take because I take my butter on my popcorn very seriously. You get your bag of popcorn and you put butter on top. The problem is you eat the top layer and there's no butter left. Here's what you do, folks. You take your straw, right? Pop off the paper on the straw. You push the straw near, not to the bottom of the bag, but near the bottom of the bag. Put the nozzle of the butter dispenser into the other end of the straw, start to dispense butter, and then you move the straw around, gradually bringing it up to the top. Now you have a full butter-satisfying experience from the top of the bag to the bottom, my friends. Can you believe that I was like a virgin till I was 19? Can you believe that? Isn't that hard to imagine?
It is hard to imagine. I don't like butter on my popcorn at all. I like copious amounts of salt.
Yeah,
I like salt.
That's why you and I will never really be friends. Okay, so popcorn, my friend. That's what we have. You know what? I went to the movie. We talked about Clark Gregg yesterday. Went to a movie with Clark Gregg once, and he did something I had never even heard of. We got a popcorn. We're at the AMC Burbank 16. We got a popcorn. And this is the guy who plays Agent Coulson in the MCU and in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the show I just said I hate. And in Endgame. Captain Marvel. He did something I've never seen anybody do. And I guess it's an American thing. He got his popcorn, but then he got a box of raisins and a box of M&Ms, dumped them in his popcorn. And I have never seen that. Have you ever done that, Ray? You have? Really? Ashley? You?
I put chocolate in my popcorn.
Really?
Yeah. I don't normally do it, but there's something about the salty and the sweet. It's just like chocolate with salt in it, like dark chocolate with sea salt. Good.
All right. See, maybe I got to expand my palate. How does the chocolate go with butter? That's an important question.
Well, I don't know because I don't put butter in my popcorn.
All right. Eric Saul writes, curious if you guys saw Jonah Hill's mid-90s and your thoughts. P.S. I bought my first hot toy, Robert, the Dark Knight Joker bank robbery figure. Nice figure.
That's a good figure, too.
How did you get your hands on that one too? That's been out of production.
Well, yeah, I think they actually did a second version.
Did they?
I think I've got the first version. I really love that figure though.
And did you have a chance to
It's
check
great.
out Mid-90s by Jonah Hill?
I have not checked out Mid-90s, but I want to get that. I love everything about that movie, even though I haven't seen it. I'm into it. I can't wait.
All right, Sebastian writes, do you need to see the previous movies in order to enjoy Glass? Of course, the previous movies are Unbreakable and Split. My guess is going to be that they will be smart enough to know that you got to be able to make this movie as a standalone. Not a hell of a lot of people saw Unbreakable, and not a hell of a lot of people saw Split. They did okay. So if you make it so you have to see those movies and you're really limiting your audience, I think they're going to make it in such a way that if you saw the previous ones, you'll get more out of it. But you can probably just walk in and watch this movie and probably be caught up pretty quick.
But you should see Unbreakable and Split.
Oh, yeah.
Because,
Yeah,
you know, Split, again, we talked about it yesterday. I think I liked it more than you did. Split has an incredible James McAvoy performance in it. I mean, it's incredible. And Unbreakable's great. So check it out.
Dimsum05 writes, my dream for a Marvel/DC or Star Wars movie one day to win Best Picture. One can dream. Well, listen, a Star Wars movie was nominated for Best Picture one year. What was the movie it lost out to?
Well, Star Wars lost to Annie Hall.
I was going to say Annie Hall.
In 1977.
That's right. It was Annie Hall that it lost out to. So Star Wars was nominated for Best Picture once. Listen, we do live in a world, I keep trying to remind people about this, where Lord of the Rings, all three of them got nominated for Best Picture, and one of them won the damn thing.
Yeah.
And a geek-centered movie like Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, still today, no movie in history has ever won more Academy Awards than Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. No film ever has won more awards than it. So it's possible. I think we're coming that day. In an era, what's that? In an era where movies like Logan are now being made, which I thought was the best movie of 2017.
Great film.
In years that we're getting movies like Infinity War, and we're getting close. We're getting close. All right, what's that? I missed two above Dim Sum? Oh, I did miss it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ray. That's why Ray's here. Kylo Ren and Stimpy writes, I love that name. That's great.
It's very funny.
Idiot. If someone would have told me this time last year that Aquaman would make $1 billion, I would have told him to lay off the drugs and booze. Well, listen, I'm a guy who has told you guys that this movie will succeed. But even I never dreamed it could make $1 billion. And all I'm left to do now is go, how much money could this thing have made if it didn't open when it opened? Like, I think if this thing opened in mid-January, like a week from now, like when the Glass opened, I think this thing could have made 1.3, 1.4 billion. I never thought this movie could have made $1 billion. So you are not alone, Kylo Ren and Stimpy, not at all. Like, you knew it could be a success.
Yeah, I mean,
Did you think billion was realistic?
I did. I mean, I think I mentioned it on the Weekly Hero. I thought it was a possibility. I mean, again, I stand by the fact that I think families revisited this film. I think that it appealed to a large number of people that might not look. I think Aquaman. There's something about Aquaman that, because of its connection to Entourage and how there's just something funny about making an Aquaman movie in general. Like an Aquaman movie, you know, Waterman. Whenever they've been joking about Aquaman for years.
Entourage. I mean, Entourage made an entire running joke of the damn thing.
It kept going, but I think that this movie is so much fun. It's just so much goofy fun at the movies that people were up for that. I mean, superheroes have been going into this very serious direction. Why not pull it back and make it more like the 70s Super Friends?
Well, that's why it's good when you get the Venoms peppered in there, or the Ant-Man and the Wasp peppered in there. It's good to change those gears up. Dimsum05 writes, where do you like to sit in the movie theater? Okay, I've got two spots. If my prime spot is not available, I like sitting near the back. I don't know why. I just like sitting at the back of the theater. But if I have the choice, a number of theaters have, you have your main section of seats, a walkway, and then a closer to the screen section of seats. Usually in that walkway, there'll be some empty space without seats reserved for people with handicaps, right? That they can sit there, make sure they have a good spot to sit. I like sitting in the chairs right behind those, because normally you have a bar there with no seat in front of it, and if there's nobody there who needs to take up those spots, I like to sit there, put my feet up, all that kind of stuff. That's where I like to sit primarily. Where do you like to sit in movie theater?
You know, I like to usually sit in the middle, and kind of in the middle of the theater to 2/3 of the way back, but it depends on the screen. I basically want my peripheral vision. I want the screen just on the edges of my peripheral vision. That's where I like to sit. So I get, in my mind, the maximum experience of seeing a movie. I don't like to be too close, and I don't like to be too far back.
All right, final two questions of the day. This one comes to us from Sebastian, who writes, I went to $5 Tuesday yesterday. Aquaman and Spidey in the Spider-Verse was packed. packed. Yeah, it's a good look. Nothing new is coming out right now other than like replicas or like some very small kind of being brushed under the carpet films. There's really not a lot. So a lot of people are taking advantage. You should take notes here, Robert, to get caught up in some of these great movies like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and go and see it. But it's good to hear that these really good movies are getting repeat business. It's always good to hear that. Final question of the day comes to us from Eric Saul, who writes, Todd Phillips posted a picture of him rapping on Joker in front of a wall saying, "No unsupervised parents allowed." Could we be witnessing Arkham and possibly have a Dr. Harleen Quinzel? I don't suspect we're going to see a Harley Quinn in this movie. I don't even think the iteration of Harleen Quinzel. I don't think we're going to see that either.
Did you say, wait, unsupervised parents?
Yes, it says no unsupervised parents allowed.
Patience.
Oh, look at that. It says patience. I just thought it said
Arkham Asylum. Is that a Freudian slip?
I thought it was a play. I thought it was a play on no unsupervised kids allowed.
Do you have to supervise when you go home during the holidays? Do you have to supervise your parents?
No, not yet.
All right,
not yet. I think probably at some point I will have to do that. But I don't, because of the time period. No, I don't suspect we're going to see a Harley Quinn. She'd be too young. She'd be way too young at this point.
I agree. I mean, look, I think this Joker movie is going to be different than everybody's expecting. I think it's going to be. It's not going to have as many ties to the DC universe as
I don't think he's going to have any.
Yeah, and I don't think that's what we're going to get. So I doubt that very much.
All right, guys, listen. Oh, Ray is telling me to do the next one, so I'm going to do the next one. Grand Master writes, has Rob seen Spider-Man? Promised to see it yesterday.
No. Listen. Let me just tell you, it was a long day yesterday. We had to get some equipment.
Yeah, we
had work we were doing for this studio to make this show even better for the audience out there.
Yes, we did.
So I was sacrificing my time to see Into the Spider-Verse to make this show better for you guys. What was I not?
You were. And I think there's two things to take away from here. Number one, Rob does work really hard to try to make this show even better. He's been coming in every day. He's added his voice to this. And like his contributions, this went with me yesterday to buy the gear, to make sure we bought this right gear. I can't wait to start using this new gear that we bought. The second thing to take away from this is Rob's promises are completely hollow. And you should never listen to them, like ever. Ever. Although we are going to have to sit here and talk for like 20 minutes when you finally do see this movie.
Yeah, and you know, I don't make hollow promises to people. It never works out, especially to your significant other.
Oh, that's true.
It's just not good. It's not a way to live your life.
All right, guys. Now that will do it. Now, for all of you guys who still have live questions to come, Godzilla Loves Sushi, Sebastian Devante, all the way down, don't you guys worry. I put up a big companion video yesterday. I'm going to take all these unanswered questions. I'm going to address them in a video later this afternoon. I got a new companion video coming up later today. So keep your eyes open for that. Your question will get answered. We've just run out of time here right now. So that will do it for us here today, guys, on the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here. I want to thank, of course, our co-host, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, where can people find you and your terrific new live stuff online?
Oh, well, thank you. You can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, find me on Instagram at RMBurnett, or find me also on my YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, where I'm doing my Robservations live chat, the Robservations show. I think I'm going to be doing more Ripped with Rob, where you'll see my drunk commentaries on movies. People have been asking me about Moonraker. Put your drunk Moonraker commentary up. I will, but I'm going to say right now,
that should go
don't drink. Even though I do. Anyway, that's where you can find me. And join in the conversation and check out my website, The Burnett Work, one word, theburnettwork.net.
And you guys can, of course, follow me on social media on my Twitter, simply at John Campea. That will do it for us, guys. So for Jonathan and Ray, Robert, and myself, thanks so much for being here, guys. My name's John Campea, and until the next time, bye-bye.